We're broadcasting?
Looks like it.
All right. Oh, I didn't get it something to drink yet.
No,
You might have to
grab
take
some.
over a class or a slide or two.
I can go grab some. I gotta shut the door here in a little bit.
Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome. It's Wednesday.
Super
Wednesday?
formal today. Yes.
I didn't have any client meetings today. Yesterday I did. Did
I
you
had
have
one. I had two. I had an IR call and then
today?
yeah, that's it. Ongoing, just daily check-in.
Michelle came in and we visited today. That was a good talk. It's good stuff. She got to meet Peter.
I'm sorry.
No, it was good.
I like Peter.
He was well behaved. But we do have plenty. We were talking about barbecue for the people that are online. You like barbecue? Barbecue? Big fans of barbecue? All right. So we're gonna barbecue.
Yeah.
Last night of class. Well, there's other ways to get that. You know, there's multiple ways to build that thing. Yeah, barbecue. We're going barbecue the last class, right?
We're gonna have overflow.
That's cool. Let's have fun. You know, for those, so, you know, as the class goes on, there's always this attrition that happens. So the ones that stick it out to the end are the ones that kind of were in it to win it. So you deserve the celebration. We'll have some, plus it's another excuse for me to make meat.
Right.
I made ribs this weekend. Did you make anything?
Mm-mm. No.
I was going to do brisket, but I didn't feel like doing the work. It's more work to do.
It is.
Brisket. Too much dang time. All right. Anyway, class 7. So you said that, is this true? Are we more than halfway through?
Almost halfway.
Almost. We're still not halfway yet?
Right, there's,
In terms of number of pages, how close are we? We got to be halfway.
we gotta be halfway. I'm deciding number of classes.
Pretty close.
We're close. So after today, we'll be,
We'll be roughly halfway.
that's pretty cool. And what was the most painful part so far? Was it the security models? Yeah, that was hard. We probably lost these students just in security models.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll look tomorrow.
I'm out of here. I'm not doing this ever again. How many? Yeah. So this we'll finish up chapter 5 tonight, and we do have plenty of time, even with me at the helm.
Yeah, this will be
We'll get
halfway.
through it.
There's 13 classes, so this is class 7.
Nice.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's technically halfway.
Yeah. So we will finish chapter 5. Is that the right email address?
No,
What's the right email address?
it's, I don't know. Brandon sent
So
it to
Brandon, our marketing person, told us today that that's the wrong email
us.
address.
CISSP mentor.
Why would you make more letters than you need to be? Okay, so CISSP mentor or CISSP mentor program?
No, CISSP
Oh, okay,
mentor
so
at
it's-
FRSecure.
okay. Slack, you guys been slacking a little bit?
Ask a question, but nobody responded.
Which one?
Bob Christoph's podcast link?
The link to his podcast.
Yeah,
Oh, that's on my site. Did you go to my site?
nope, I didn't.
Okay.
I will.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get you on my site so
Okay.
so I can sell you something.
The PDF that Brandon sent out, I fixed the PDF. Just didn't, he just let
Okay,
it.
so people have the PDF.
We failed the test.
So his podcast site, yeah, it's on that page.
How to break into cybersecurity or something.
Yep.
Mhm.
We'll have, I'm gonna message Brandon right now. I'll have him send that out
Send one out.
in the thing.
I think it's, oh shoot, where'd it go? So I was gonna bring it over here. So I think the show notes, it's,
Oh, it's in the show notes, okay.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So there's Christoph. See? Looks different than he sounds on the phone, I thought. What, do you think he's French? It's gotta be French.
Yeah.
But there, is that the link?
Okay,
No, here. Is it, do you see it? I can't see it over there.
yeah, I see Crowdcast
Yeah, that's him.
right underneath your panel.
This one?
Yep.
Okay, yep, so there's his link. There it is. Yeah, so there's his podcast. I can't believe how, if you listen to this week's podcast, how much that guy does. I mean, we do a lot too, but I mean, he's like volunteering all the time, and he's got a 1 hour, 2 hour commute back and forth from, he used to live out there.
Yeah,
He's out
that's
in Washington, D.C. That
2
area.
hour commute, that's 12 miles,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe 15, depending on where you're
I
at.
complain when, you know, I go from here to Waconia, that's where I live. Right? I mean, but you know, I'm in a hurry. And I got a big truck, so get out of my way. Anyway, all right, so questions so far? Questions on anything last week? Anything on encryption? Anything on security models? Everything kind of coming together so far? Do you guys feel like on a scale of 1 to 10, how prepared do you feel about what you've already learned? You know, I mean, how well do you feel like you've grasped that? Are you gonna have to go through, read it a couple more times first?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Security models for sure.
that's a cool case.
Thanks.
Yeah, it looks like a book. Yeah, so I think that's normal, you know. Like I said, I went through it 3 times when I took the exam a while back, so I think that's all okay. You use this time to just dedicate to just, like, maybe this is your first time through the book, you know. This is just kidding, hearing, whatever. All right, so we have quiz questions. These quiz questions were, what's that?
He didn't even get to finish his,
I was gonna tell him where to get it.
yeah. These are out of the FRSecure
Yeah,
quiz engine.
yeah, yeah.
So it's in the email
You have to
too.
bring me an apple next time. Plus, you're wearing a Green Bay Packers hat.
Ooh,
It's my brand.
brand.
Uncool.
Ooh.
Still like you. Less, but I like you. All right, so yes, 128 bits. Other IP version 4, 32 bits, right? The other ones, I don't know. 64 would be the size of MAC address, yep, 32. Which of the following is used to find the media access control address that is its own internet protocol address? ARP, address resolution protocol. A spoofing attack is at layer 2 of the OSI model is also known as DNS spoofing, web spoofing, MAC spoofing, IP address. See? MAC address. I call it ARP spoofing, but I guess for this we call it MAC. It's the same thing. You would be able to obviously eliminate the others because they're different layers. Below, you have a list of protocols on the left side and a list of ports on the right side. Using your mouse, select the proper value listed on the right side. Okay, so this
would be one of those more interactive. Can you do it on your
can't see
screen?
it.
Oh, here, you have to pull it up on your.
HTTPS is what port?
443.
143. What, NetBIOS?
137. 233.
Yeah. Kerberos,
88.
88. LDAP,
389.
389. Yep, and then secure LDAP is 686. So that's just memorization.
Yep.
There's really no other way
These
to
are,
kind of do it.
and it would be more that interactive one that you'll get. So you would drag and drop, but obviously that doesn't work on a slide deck.
So there's did you draw those arrows?
Mm-hmm.
See, this week we switched it up, or this class, we switched up. He created the slides and I'm teaching. So I don't know.
You don't know what's in there.
Well, I know some of it. I went through some of it just a little bit, just to kind of like, okay, what did he do it?
What am I talking about? Yeah, did I do it?
Did you do it the format, stuff, and yeah, I don't know what's all in here. And next week I saw at the end, you volunteered for Monday.
I know, I was like, wait, well, all right, that's fair. You taught the last 2.
I know, but you're supposed to stick it to the man. It's awesome. So which layer does IPsec operate? Session, data link, transport, network. Network? Yep. Oh boy. So words, lots of words.
Skip the whole thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Later.
What layer of the network interface cards and drivers convert bits into electrical signals and convert transmit, blah, blah, blah. So I guess you kind of pretty much have it at convert bits into electrical signals.
So Yeah, and in the exam, don't be surprised to see the next question be something that actually does.
Oh, and look at B, physical, layer 2 physical layer. Because you could potentially, if it said layer 2 data link layer, that could potentially, because it's going to be a handoff there. That would have made the question much more difficult. Yeah. What were you saying? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you have questions that, you know, may actually have something relevant in the wall of text. But
yeah, imagine reading all that. It's a lot of words. All right, so domain 4, communication and network security. We're going to finish up this chapter, and then what's chapter 6? Do you remember? Do you remember what chapter 6 is?
no.
All right, well, chapter 6 comes after that. I assume, ooh, mine was black though.
Identity and access.
That's a good
Oh,
one.
I like identity and access management.
That's a good one.
That one's fun.
Jeez.
It's not fun to do, it's just, but it is fun. So for real picture of the car, of course you have to take a picture of the car, right? Oh wait, where is
It
it?
wasn't yellow?
Yellow, what the hell?
I just
That's
looked
all
for-
that drives around in New York or taxis.
I had the right model. I just searched for Range Rover in New York and threw the picture in there.
I don't know. Is it the Velar?
Yeah. Look at that.
Right. Yeah, so last week I did you guys know that? Yeah, no, that's true. I have pictures. If you want to catch me after class and see the pictures.
You got a play-by-play.
Yeah. Who was I talking to today? Somebody was talking to me about the Velar, and I was like, I drive an F-250. That's just like, it's not with all the bells and whistles, right? I don't like the bells and whistles because I get lost in all the bells and whistles. I just want a button to do one thing, not 50 things and then switch menus and all this other stuff. You do that all day at work, right? I don't want that in my car too. So that's what my truck is. And then I go get into this thing and like, I don't even know how to start the damn thing. Well, it's one of those keyless things. So like, all right, I can figure out, push the button, hit the brake, push the button. And then like out of nowhere, this, the shifter thing pops out of the console, right? It was flush and it pops up and what the hell is that? So then, you know, it's a dial thing, and then the whole screen pops up. And then if you get too close to things, it shakes your butt.
Yeah,
See?
that's freaky, isn't
It
it?
scared the hell out of me. Thought I broke the car. I'm driving, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it's 70 to get buzzed. Yeah.
All right, so, yep, here we go. 5, 3? All right. So starting off with T1, T3. So the difference between sometimes people use T1, DS1, and T3, DS3 interchangeably. One's the actual signal, and the other one's the actual media. So the T is for the copper media that it goes over the DS. So I don't think it'll be testable, but I do get that question a lot. Like, what's the difference between a T3 and a DS3, or a T1 and a DS1? That's the difference. So in the United States, it's all T carriers, and in Europe, it's E carriers, just because, I don't know, Europeans have to do things different, or we do things different. T1, 1.544 megabits per second. A lot of times people just round it off to 1.5 megabits per second. 64-bit DS0 signals in a T1. You can also, so if you've used T1s before, you can split some of those signals out for voice traffic, so you could have 20 phone lines and 4 data lines, you know, so then you get 4 times whatever 1.544 is it 64 bits, kilobits, whatever that number is. You just do the math, which is the way we would do it. I'm not sure how common it is. It seems like everybody's voice over IP now, pretty much, but in the day, you would do it that way. DS1, T1 used interchangeably, talked about that. T3 is 28 bundled T1, so if you do the math, that gives you 44.736 megabits per second. Oftentimes just round it to 45 megabits per second. So if you remember 1.5 and 45, that's fine. Yeah. Same kind of thing with that T3, DS3, T1, DS1 kind of relationship. E1s in Europe, dedicated 2.048 megabit per second circuit, 30 channels, and the E3 is 24 E1s. So the math on those, it's 2.048 megabits per second and 34. Oftentimes we would actually refer to, usually an E3 is like a 36 megabit per second. I'm not sure where we got there, the 1 point some megabits per second, but yeah, those are European. You wouldn't see these in the United States. Sonnet uses the multiple T carrier circuits carried over fiber optic because the O is for optical, which would be just a physical fiber ring for redundancy. Remember I talked a little bit about Sonnet? We had the multiple. Yep, FIDI works the same way. All right, so frame relay. I'm not doing networking like I used to. Is frame relay still? Yeah, I thought that had died a while back.
Yeah, can't buy it.
Yeah.
Unless you're overseas somewhere, a few of the countries yet.
Yeah, I used to like frame relay. I got, it's a good friend. Packet switch, so remember the difference between packet switched and circuit switched. The thing with frame relay that sometimes throws people off is it does sort of emulate on a switched virtual circuit. It sort of emulates like it's a circuit switched network, but it's not. It's still packet switched network. Because there's two types, there's permanent virtual circuit and switched virtual circuit. The permanent virtual circuit is just up all the time, right? And sometimes, it'd be sort of wasteful, because even when I'm not using that circuit, it's still up, still mailed up. The switched virtual circuit would set up a call, so it would set up, how we're going to communicate, and then it would communicate over that circuit, right, which is just a logical path through the frame relay network. But at the heart of it, it's still a packet switched network. Sometimes people get confused with that. This is a WAN protocol. This is a wide area network protocol. This isn't something you'd use on a local area network, or you'd use it maybe in a metropolitan area network too. Probably not on a campus. Probably something over, from here to St. Paul, potentially you'd have a frame relay. From here to Los Angeles, you'd maybe have a frame relay network, but they're dead now. hdlCs were just things that would essentially address the frames over the frame relay network, so the carrier knows where they belong, where they go
Keyword
to.
there's local.
Well, can change from router to router.
Yep, local. Any questions on that frame relay? That's what it looks like. That's what a frame looks like. And frames are layer 2, right? So frame relay actually works on layer 2, so that there's some continuity in the name. And you don't need to memorize the structure. You need to memorize this. What's that?
Beckons and beckons.
Yeah, beckons and beckons. But that's that. X.25, X.25 died actually even longer than that. X.25 was sort of the precursor to a lot of the TCP/IP packet switch stuff. Older WAN protocol had a lot of overhead because it had a lot of error checking. Networking wasn't very reliable then, neither were the applications that used it, so it had a lot of overhead built into it, which led to a lot of latency. And X.25 can carry other protocols because it's really a layer 2, so it can carry everything above it. Just gets, remember we talked about encapsulation, it would just get encapsulated in there. But X.25, as far as I know, is also a dead protocol. But fundamentals, the fundamentals are still the same.
Oh, we had a typo, 16D1 or 16E1 and E3.
Oh, see, am I at
We had 24.
16? Okay.
Oops.
Now am I at here? ATM? ATM. I think ATM was, ATM is, the good thing about ATM is it was very predictable, right? Everything was 53 byte cells. So, and that also made it predictable because the forwarding, the router, or the routing of those cells, you didn't have to wait for the entire packet to get in. You were able to already start forwarding out the next interface. So it was very high performance. So the things to remember though about ATM, technically the 53-byte cell length, the 5-byte header. So by the time the receiving system had already gotten through the first 5 bytes, it was already starting to make the forwarding decision on where to send that packet. So it was very fast. Switched to multi-megabit data service. ATM was sort of modeled after that, but it's gone too. Switched to multi-megabit data service. We're gonna get into, it's like tongue twisters here in a little bit too when we talk about some of like orthogonal. I'm not gonna try it. I'll have to read it because the tongue twisters come. hdlC and hdlC, synchronous data link control, layer 2, still layer 2 WAN protocols. These are all WAN protocols. Every protocol we've talked about today has been a WAN protocol. Polling to transmit data. So polling means that I can't transmit until I'm given sort of permission to transmit. Now there's a central system that would do the polling, primary and secondaries, but it runs in other ways. So hdlC only ran in the response mode, network response mode, but there are 2 other modes that are added onto with hdlC, with high-level data link control. So you see the normal response mode, the secondary modes have to wait until they get permission from the primary. In asynchronous and in response mode and balance mode, so ARM and ABM, you don't have to wait for permission. The difference between the two is the asynchronous, you can have multiple secondaries sort of communicating with each other at the same time, sort of thing. Error correction, flow control, 2 other modes. That's what hdlC gives you, and there's the modes. SDLC only runs in normal response mode. Slow. Yeah, slow. That's about it. Oh, you did. There's like 2 slides right here. It's because I did a link. Was there supposed to be an Easter egg here?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought maybe you slid something in there.
No.
They see something online that I don't see here.
Converge?
No, not yet. So converged protocols, it's sort of a different protocol stack that really integrates in with TCP/IP. So traditional non-IP services all provided on Ethernet and IP, but you'll see how there's sort of an integration. This used to happen a lot in command and control systems, type systems. Distributed network protocol, DNP3, is a completely different standard that uses TCP/IP, but it's not the same as TCP/IP, and there'll be a diagram here in a minute. Energy industry, multi-layer protocol, can be carried via TCP/IP, smart grid technology. You don't have to remember those IEEE standards. Just knowing that it is an IEEE standard will be plenty. So you don't have to memorize 1815, 2010, or 1815, 2012. They did add security in the 2012, where now you've got, encryption. That's what it looks like. So there's the OSI model, and you can see how you've got some additional protocols, but then there's an added sort of data link protocol, where in the TCP/IP model, that's the data link in multiple, or the physical, are kind of combined. Here they're separated out in the standard. Minor changes, but that's what it is. Storage protocols, so Fibre Channel and iSCSI. Fibre Channel uses Ethernet. It's its own encapsulation. It's its own protocol at layer 2, carried through TCP/IP. If you hear HBA, you're talking Fibre Channel. They have host bus adapters. iSCSI has LANs. So that's how you keep them different. So if you see HBA, you're talking Fibre Channel. If you hear LANs, and these would be on storage area networks this would be connecting storage area networks too, potentially. iSCSI, Internet Small Computer System Interface, can access storage across the WAN. We'd have 2 potential SANs accessing or communicating across a WAN. SAN would be a storage area network. It wasn't part of LANs, MANs, PANs, and GANs thing. Logical unit numbers, LUNs, would be dedicated to iSCSI. That's what it looks like. Got the application. You have a new layer, the SCSI layer. And Fibre Channel uses those protocols. iSCSI essentially just integrates directly, and then you don't have to worry about SRP. Make sense? Just more memorization, yeah? Unless you already knew this stuff, then it's like, yep, thanks.
Do you want a drink? I'm gonna go shut the door.
Drink? Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
What do you want? Full service.
Energy drink, please. You guys want anything? Wise up? Okay.
Which one? The white one?
Shout for the glass door.
From experience. Yeah. All right. Voice over IP. So prior voice over IP, it's just we use the analog POT system, the plain old telephone system. Those are essentially, you still see them. It's just rare. Right? They're still out there. There's still modems. There's still fax machines connected to phone systems.
Alarms and elevators are the two big ones.
Alarms and elevators. How about fax machines? Are fax machines all gone VoIP?
There's still a lot of fax out there in the healthcare industry, but most of them are going to e-fax.
Yeah.
Just for the cost savings.
I actually liked it. POTS. It was pretty secure compared to voice over IP because it was a circuit switch network. So the circuit would be brought up and your communication would take place. You can still tap in, but the packet switch network makes it a lot more difficult. It goes all over the place, right? You can sort of lose control. So voice over IP, taking the same communication, just it's all digitized. The protocols that are important for us is RTP and SIP. RTP is the transport protocol, which is what it says it does. It transports that voice traffic. SIP is a signaling protocol. Keeps the synchronization between the two nodes that are talking on a voice over IP network. There's the secure real-time transfer protocol, which then integrates AES. So we know what AES is in SHA-1. So that's encrypted. Without that, it's all snippable, right? So your voice communications can all be eavesdropped on. Yeah, I don't even know if you can set up a voice over IP system now without SRTP. But you can also run it through over IPsec. So you could do RTP through a VPN tunnel. I mean, you can do all this, not all this. You can't do the layer 2 stuff through VPN tunnels, but you can do VPN tunnels through the layer 2 stuff. So here, voice over IP isn't a layer 2. So we switched here from, we were talking about WAN stuff here. That's all WAN stuff. Then we went into kind of this converged protocols, and we only covered one. We only covered the DP3. And then we go to storage protocols, and then to even confuse things a little bit more, we were kind of going in a flow there where we had everything kind of WAN. Voice over IP is not a WAN protocol, right? It's a full protocol. I mean, it's a protocol stack. Anyway, that's the stuff you need to remember for voice over IP. Wireless local area networks. Anytime you see an 802. Anything, that's an IEEE standard, so 802.11i is an IEEE standard, 802.3 for Ethernet is an IEEE standard, 802.5 for token ring. We're going to have a list of those things. You only need to remember probably wireless, Ethernet. That's probably it. You won't need to know token rings standard or anything like that. So wireless local area networks, information electromagnetic waves, radio or light over without a wire. Right? Simple. Most common forms are all in the 802.11 wireless standard. 802.11 was the first standard, but then we had to add on to it because WEP was sad. Right? There was no security at all. The thing with wireless is you'll never have reliability with a wireless network that you'll have with a wired network. You'll never have the same protection against availability attacks because it's really easy to take a wireless network offline by just jamming signals. You won't be able to stop that. It's just how it works. So WLANs or wireless local area networks, have no way to assure availability. Launching a DOS attack against it's just throw a bunch of noise, on the bands. We'll talk about those are the 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. There's a bunch of bands within that frequency, but you just jam it all, I suppose. Critical applications. should use wired connections. People know that. So we have unlicensed bands and licensed bands. Licensed bands are ones that have been set aside by the FCC to be used by whoever, right? Create devices, communications, whatever, in that free band. Whereas the other ones have been assigned to somebody. They've got them assigned to radio stations, scientific research, whatever they've done. So band is a small amount of contiguous. How is the right way to say that word? Is that contiguous or contiguous? Or does it matter? Contiguous? What is contiguous? Is that even a word? Did I just make that up?
Contagious.
I'm an author, so I think I can call it what I want, pretty much. Contiguous is what it is, man.
Yeah.
I like
the
it.
joy of being an author. You can make words up and people just
All
go,
day long, and people are like,
wow.
that's smart.
So kind of combining contiguous with contagious.
That might have been what I did. Contiguous. So contiguous just means it's within the same, it's in line, right? Contiguous radio spectrum, ISM bands. So the ISM bands are the ones that are unlicensed, that I don't need a license. Anything in the ISM bands. FCCs, who controls all that, wireless devices, cordless phones, 802.11, Bluetooth. That's why, you remember when you used to have when you went from corded telephones to wireless telephones, and then somebody would turn on like the microwave, and you turn it off the microwave, you know? That's because you had interference, because they were operating in that same band. So cordless phones, 802.11, wireless, Bluetooth are all use ISM bands. The two most popular ISM bands used for networking are the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz bands. I'll have to memorize. This is where I always get my all messed up. So I'm going to frequency hopping spread spectrum. Say that like 5 times really fast, or say them all in order 5 times really fast. So frequency hopping spread spectrum is older. Most of them are orthogonal now, but sending traffic via a radio band, all 3 of these are methods for sending traffic over radio bands. The thing with frequency hopping is it hops different frequencies within the band. And it'll do it in a pseudo-random number, and that'll be negotiated with whatever it is that the 2 things are communicating on how they're going to switch frequencies or bands, frequencies within the band. So it just hops, which is nice because that's the second word there. Direct sequence spread spectrum spreads the communication across the entire spectrum. Right? It's almost like a multiplex type of environment. Orthogonal frequency division multiplexing allows you to send these wireless signals over more dedicated frequencies, and there's still a hop, but it's not nearly as random. But there's interference on that. That's the big thing about orthogonal frequency division multiplexing, is there's no interference. Not to say you can't take it down, because you can jam the whole band, right? So it still doesn't mean it's not susceptible to that. So these are the IEEE standards over on the right. On the left are the wireless networks. A, B, G, and N will be the ones that you'll need to know. I can't even read any of that, but you can see it, I assume. The ones 2.3, 802.11, those are the big ones. But if you wanted to know the others, there they are. 802.11, B, A, B, G, and N, these are the ones that you'll need to know. There's a comparison table. You'll just have to memorize it. Yeah, that's all there is to it. These are different modes for wireless networks, different things that could be. So managed mode it's an access point. Clients can't connect with anything other than the access point in managed mode. In managed mode, these are clients can only connect to a managed mode. Does that make sense? So the managed mode, connected mode, or I'm sorry, master mode, Those two have to communicate with each other. One's the access point and the other's the client. Ad hoc mode is just peer-to-peer communication. Everything's sort of, out there. And monitor mode would be, we're using a wireless sniffer or something to, it's like promiscuous mode for a wireless network. Kismet is still the, Kismet and Wellenreiter are both sort of troubleshooting pen testing tools that you could use for wireless networks. Kismet is been around forever. It's kind of the king. Any question on those modes? I'm not sure I said it well, but hopefully it made sense. Yeah? No? Online? Too quiet on
questions? Yeah, there's some discussion.
Are they still awake?
I would assume so.
Yeah, you should put like little pulse meters on people. SSID and MAC address filtering. So SSIDs is, that's the network name. You need to know the network name if you're going to connect. Some people have a false assumption that if I hide the network name, so I don't advertise the network name, that makes my network more secure. It doesn't. So it just, for the layperson who's just roaming around, yeah, that makes it more secure for them, but it's very easy to find those.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the SSID, now things about SSIDs, a lot of times people put company names in SSIDs, a lot of times people put certain information about the network in the SSID. I wouldn't put anything that identifies anything about you if you can in the SSID. Right? Because then anybody who's driving by.
FRS Wi-Fi.
Oh, here, business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can hack it. Go for it.
BYOD one, it's just a straight pipe out.
Right. Sometimes we like people to try things too, honestly, but yeah, FRS, BYOD. So in a company, you probably have to, but at home, I wouldn't put my name. I wouldn't put my address. I don't even know what mine is.
Mine is, I can see what you're doing.
I can see what you're doing.
That's a very popular one, yeah.
A lot of times, even leaving the SSID at default isn't a big deal. It's not. There's no authentication in it, so leaving the default CenturyLink, whatever, blah 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 blah, isn't going to be a big deal. SSIDs are normally broadcasted. Yes, that's true. Relying on secrecy, a bad strategy. Yep, we talked about that. And MAC addresses on 802.11. They can also be sniffed, so requiring just MAC address control as opposed to other forms of authentication also probably isn't going to be, it's good in combination with other things in your strategy, but not a sole thing in your strategy. And sometimes it's not even worth setting it up, a MAC address filter. WEP is bad. Do you guys ever done war driving before? Get a Yagi antenna and drive around and do you still do it?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a really long time for me too, but I just wonder how many web networks there are still out there. Because it used to be kind of fun. Ding, ding, ding as they're popping up on your monitor. And web was very popular.
I was going to say you can.
Yeah, I know, but I just haven't been war driving in a long time. Have you guys, nobody?
I would think all those access points would have died. What's access point good for? 2 years typically?
I don't know. I'd probably still find some NT4 out there somewhere. You know what I mean? People keep things. XP definitely out there still.
XP, we see 2000, 2003 servers.
Oh yeah, I know a whole domain that's still at 2003 functional level on a big enterprise network. Yeah. So WEP was deprecated because it was very insecure. Minutes used to be you would need to capture about, because it's a function of how much data you capture. That's how you can crack web. So if the network isn't being used at all, it'll take you longer. If there's file transfers going on web networks, you can crack it pretty fast, right? So that's how the function is. Little integrity, confidentiality, protection, yeah, nothing really. Strongly discourage, if anything, if you use WEP thinking that you're getting additional protection, you're actually getting less because you're a target. You know what I mean? So 802.11i came out. There was a stopgap there. We had the wired access protocol or whatever. But anyway, that's WEP. That's what you need to know about WEP. These were some of the weaknesses: key management, key size, the initialization vector was too small, integrity check value algorithm wasn't appropriate, its use of RC4 was weak, and authentication messages could be easily forged. So,
You know,
so a combination of those things makes it pretty bad. Outcomes 802.11i, there was a stop in between called WPA, wired protect, whatever. I don't even remember what WPA stood for. But 802.11i, the official standard is WPA2. So WPA was that stopgap that we had to have while the IEEE ratified a new protocol. It is the security standard, reasonable security, robust security network. Other things about WPA2 are interesting. Oh, it's extensible. So I can use multiple different encryption protocols on a WPA2 network. I can use different authentication mechanisms also in a WPA2 network. You see some new terms there. CCMP, the counter mode CBC MAC protocol, the message integrity check. These were just add-ons that fixed these things. So the message integrity check fixed the authentication messages being, easily forged. So it still had kind of WEP at its core. It wasn't, completely in terms of how it functions, WPA2 optionally less secure. So you could use RC4, but RC4 itself is weak too. So if you configure WPA2, if you've configured WPA2 on your own home routers and everything like that, you can see that usually you have additional options. Or even if you do it, I guess, on this network or Aruba network, you have different options for the different types of encryption algorithms you want to use. TKIP, temporal key integrity protocol, just make sure that the integrity also has some confidentiality functionality, but it's primarily around integrity of the data. But that's WPA2 802.11i. That's plenty to get you through exam. Bluetooth, that's also an IEEE standard, 802.15. That's that personal area network we talked about before. Bluetooth is, everything about Bluetooth is pretty much weak. The authentication is weak. Am I running out of time?
No, Fitbits.
Oh yeah, exactly. My Apple Watch.
yeah.
Your car, and you do, yep, absolutely. So the thing is, it's not like you don't use Bluetooth, but just know that I wouldn't store anything confidential on my phone. Even your access to mail is two-factor authentication. So, there's some additional protection there. So I feel sort of comfortable using Bluetooth, but Bluetooth itself is just going to open doors. I trade off because I want the convenience of the other things I get. Some people will turn off Bluetooth, and some people won't use Bluetooth at all.
Yeah, I don't
Just
think
turn it off.
work email to my Bluetooth
To your phone?
because I don't put the Outlook app on it.
Right, but the fact that I have Bluetooth on here.
It hurts,
Yeah.
right? But
And Bluetooth on, sometimes in operating systems,
Yeah.
Windows 10 has a Bluetooth function. I can turn on Bluetooth. This is running Bluetooth right now. Yeah. So Bluetooth, in general, not very secure, but whatever. The key isn't risk elimination anyway, if you remember, it's management. So if somebody does attack Bluetooth on my computer, I would hope that I would notice it and do something about it, or have it turned off, or it would be turned off and you wouldn't have it open anyway, something like that. I'm not quite as paranoid as some security.
if I were going to
I'd actually kind of like it because then maybe you'd learn how they attack, your Bluetooth.
if you're going to DEF CON or Black Hat or something.
Oh yeah, you don't bring this to DEF CON.
Then don't do it, but.
No, but it's fun to play around with DEF CON, to bring crap stuff, because you do learn a lot about what people are doing. It's pretty wild. And then they'll kick you out now. They will actually bust people and kick them out.
That's good.
Not have them come back if you're doing stuff illegal. It's a personal area network, small low-power devices. You know what Bluetooth is used for. Version 1 and older, operating 3 megabits per second. Version 3, which is 2009. I don't even know if there's a 2004. I'm not up on Bluetooth all that much, but version 3 was 2009, and it's faster. Class of devices, class 3, class 2, class 1, you probably need to memorize that. Class 3 is under 10 meters, it's very close. Class 1 is 100 meters, and then class 2 is 10 meters. Use the 128-bit E0 symmetric stream cipher, which is weak. It actually turns out that 128-bit key, the way it's implemented in the cipher, it actually turns out it's a 38-bit key. So it's not very secure. But in order to the analysis for this, you still have to transfer quite a bit of data, right? It's not like, it's not like I turned on Bluetooth and 5 minutes later I'm compromised. It's quite a bit of data to even on a 38-bit key. RFID, so everybody's RFID now. Now this is a part where people get paranoid about RFID. It's actually, the attacks are, I've never actually seen a real, and never read a real attack in the wild against RFID.
We had somebody.
We've seen people do it in testing. And
we have an RFID clone.
Right.
And you have to hold it against it for like
you have to
10 seconds.
Over here, like, hey, how you doing?
It works great once you do it,
Right.
but it's not just like a walk by.
And then you have to make your card. Yeah. So I think the fear is somewhat overblown because everybody was buying those those Faraday cage wallets and things like that, and putting aluminum foil. And so if you go out and Google it and do the research, you find out that a lot of those fears are way overblown. Because you have to, attackers are going after the things that are the biggest return on their investment. It's not a great return on my investment to have to go physically and find all these people in all these places. So it's just not as common as you might think. We have who is it? Can we say his name? We have one of our pen testers has an RFID chip implanted in him, so now he doesn't have an access card. He just comes up and waves his hand and opens the door. So when and if he leaves the company, we chop off his hand. And then screen him for any other chips he may have implanted in himself.
Did you give him his hands to the replacement?
Yeah, there you go. Here's your new card. Ooh, really? Works. So RFID, we assume used for access cards. This is RFID. This is a passive RFID. There's no battery in here. It gets powered up as it gets closer to the reader. In your credit cards, you've got RFID chips. RFID is used a lot of times for inventory and warehouses, all those things. Lots of applications for RFID. Yeah, pet tracking for sure. So radio frequency identification, wirelessly readable tags, yes, 3 types of RFID. There's active, semi-passive, and passive. Active and semi-passive both have to have a power source on the card itself, or on whatever it is that's being RFID read. The difference between active and semi-passive is the semi-passive will also rely on the reader itself of its power. An active one has a battery. They're usually a little bit larger, a little bit thicker. They'll broadcast a signal, large distances, all that stuff. Transponders typically. A transponder is, you know what a transponder is, right? It does both, transmits and responds, so it's a two-way when you're a transponder. Semi-passive also has a battery. Most of them are passive. Most of the RFID cards that you run into are passive RFID cards. Any questions on those? That's a Faraday cage. Faraday cage just disrupts the RFID signal or any really radio signal. So, that movie with Will Smith. Isn't there a movie with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Where he ran into a guy that was up in a and he was in a Faraday cage.
Kansas State or something.
Enemy of something like that.
Yeah. But all it takes, I mean, we actually.
Yeah, Enemy of the State.
Gene Hackman.
Lots of people knew that one.
Yeah.
Will Smith, Gene Hackman.
Yep.
Yeah. Like in the back, we have that cage for
Inventory.
Inventory. That's a Faraday cage. I mean, it's just it can be something just like a chain link fence all around you. There'll still be some, you think there's still be some leakage because you want a little tighter weave, I suppose, but anyway. There's a Faraday cage, and then RFID wallets they still do. They sell
Yeah.
tons and tons of those things. I don't know. I have a Harley wallet
There you go.
because I used to ride more. I was a little less reckless, I guess. Hubs and repeaters, we've been through this, right? So this is a little bit of review. This should be pretty easy, and a lot of this will just kind of bring us home, and we're going to have no problem in our time today. Repeaters and hubs, remember they layer one, they're dumb, they don't do anything, they just regenerate signals. The difference between a repeater and a hub is just 2 ports. I'm sorry, repeater is just 2 ports, a hub is a multi-port repeater. That's essentially it. The only place I'd ever use these is if I wanted to tap in and I wanted to run something like a packet sniffer or an IDS device, because I needed that promiscuous mode. You remember a computer that's on a network not in promiscuous mode will process things that have its MAC address, right? So a switch then blocks. I won't see all the network traffic if I'm connected to a switch port. I need something dumber than that. That's why I would potentially use a hub or a repeater here.
I needed more ports at the desk.
No. Stop it. That's going to be our next podcast. Yeah, so hubs.
I've seen that before.
Oh, I have to.
Hunting it down.
I have to. So there's a repeater. You can see that one on the left is a signal that suffered from some attenuation over the course of the line, and then it just goes to the repeater, gets regenerated. That's it. Bridges operate at layer 2, so there is some logic in a bridge. They'll only forward traffic that's on a MAC address. They'll only forward traffic on a network or an interface with a MAC address is, or how do I say it? I was trying to think of a really smart way to say it. Well, anyway, a bridge builds a MAC address table, right? These MAC addresses are over here. These MAC addresses are over here. If this one wants to communicate with something with MAC addresses over here, it won't go over the bridge. It'll stop it. The bridge won't forward it. If the bridge doesn't know, if it's not on the MAC address table, it'll go everywhere. That's what I was trying to say, but I thought I had a really good sentence to just say it in one sentence, and everybody would be like, damn, you are an author. Anyway, 2 collision domains. So collision domains are layer 2. Broadcast domains are layer 3. Collision domains are layer 2. So a collision domain just like if you ever had to run a hub before on a larger network for any period of time, you'll learn what a collision domain is really quick, right? Because there'll be so much traffic going back and forth and so much broadcast, so much ARP and all this other crap that it'll bring your network to a halt, a standstill. If you watch the lights on a hub, they'll just go and then go solid, right? And you're suffering from what's called a broadcast storm. But anyway, collision domains, hubs break, or switches and bridges break collision domains. Okay, there's 2 collision domains in a bridge. On a switch, every port is a collision domain. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's a bridge in the middle of 2 segments, 2 collision domains, whatever. There's a switch, just a multi-port bridge. Oh, look, we don't have you can't see the stuff behind it. But anyway, that's all it is. Switches, multi-port bridge. Yep.
Somebody QA'd it.
No, dude, it's all good. I'm complaining. It saved me like 2
hours. It was like 2 hours, yeah.
Things. So VLANs, you hear about VLANs. We've heard about VLANs before. VLANs just break up broadcast domains within a layer 2 device. So the only way I can get from one VLAN to another VLAN, it requires inter VLAN routing. That would be a router, something at layer 3 that can get me over that hump. But and the way you do it the reason why the switch can do it is I can just tag switch ports. You belong to this, you belong to this, you belong to this. Those are the VLANs. In order to get from this to this, I have to go through a router. Does that make sense? All right. So virtual LANs and inter VLAN communication. We'll need to know those things. A span port and mirror port are essentially the same. It's if I wanted to do some troubleshooting, or I wanted to do some network sniffing, or I wanted to do some potentially some IDS, IPS, I could configure a span port, which would take multiple ports on a switch and send them to one port, right? The span port. So I could monitor, these. I want to monitor these, 10 switch ports. You just configure a span port for that. The problem with span ports is you'll have bandwidth limitations. Like I can't take 100 megabit per second ports and span them to 100 megabit per second port, right? I mean, I can as long as there's not much traffic going on, but I'm going to get a lot of drop. So that's the biggest takeaway, or the biggest problem with a span port. But you do this for, this is still.
Yeah, IDS, IPS troubleshooting.
Mm-hmm. Switches, so then there's test access ports, or TAP ports. This is essentially taking all the unicast streams on a network and putting them through a specific TAP port, and that's it. These are usually built with additional bandwidth. So anyway, that's a TAP port. Same kind of thing. I'd use it for the same things. I'd use it for network sniffing, troubleshooting, IDS, IPS.
The big one is the fail open, so if it fails, you're not
down.
Yeah.
That's very true. Routers, or routers, however you want to say it. I believe it's router. Layer 3 devices, so this router's route, right? It's pretty simple. Route traffic from one local area network to another, and they make routing decisions based on their understanding of the network. So in a router, they have to have a routing table, right? To tell us, in order to get to, from here to way over there, send it here, right? You'd have to have some knowledge of how the network is set up for a router to actually work. There's two ways to build a routing table. You can do it static. I can manually type in all the routes, or I can dynamic. I can use a protocol to build those routing tables. There's always a default route, typically, that you would configure in a router. If I don't know anything, if I don't know where this thing goes, it's not in my routing table anywhere, just send it here, right? That's your default route. Those are the kinds of routes that you'd set up in a router: static routes, default routes, and dynamic routes, or ones that are populated with a routing protocol. Make sense? Okay. Static routes, routes to other networks, talked about this, manually entered. So if you have a dynamic route or dynamic network where routes come up, routes come down, networks go up, networks go down, whatever, or it's a big network, this can get, you'll understand that you want a routing protocol, right? And you probably don't want RIP, because you might as well just enter it manually then. So static routes, they're great for small networks, and they work, and you'll always have a few static routes in your routing table if you managed a router before. Like your default route is definitely going to be a static route. You're probably not going to leave that to dynamic. That's the second part, the default route. So if I don't know anything, I don't know where this thing goes, I'm just going to throw it out at the default router, the default route, and hope that default, whatever that default router is, has a route. If it doesn't, then it'll send it on to its next default route. Eventually, somebody will know how to get to this network. That's how that works. Routing protocols. So we've got some new terms here. Convergence. That's when there's agreement between the routers in the routing who are using the same routing protocol. There's agreement that we all understand how to get to different places. That's what convergence is. Interior gateway routing protocols, or interior gateway protocols. We talked about this, I think, last class a little bit. Those are routing protocols that are used for LANs, used within what we would call an autonomous system, because you can have interior gateway routing protocols across many LANs, and even across many organizations, but it's not advertised out on the internet, right? It doesn't tell you how to get from FRSecure to GE.com, right? That would require an exterior gateway protocol. BGP is the king. It's the only. We can use IG. It's funny. There are other protocols. There's even actually interior gateway protocols that you can use at exterior gateway protocols. But for the test, BGP is the only one you need to know about. Border gateway protocol. Make sense? Any questions on these things? Distance vector protocol. So a distance vector protocol uses essentially one metric for making decisions. It's the distance. There may be some other things, but that's the king in a distance vector routing protocol. However many hops, right? And that's where routing information protocol plays. Tricks to determine the best route across the network. Simplest metric is hop count. And hop counts always, so we've got a couple things to protect us from packets just kind of going forever. One is the routing protocol itself will have a hop count limit. And then you remember the TTLs in the IP header portion of the packet, how those will be decremented after every router will decrement that by one. So hop count is an important function, it's an important metric. Does not account for link speed or network. So this is a big deal. If I've got I could get there through 3 gigabit per second links, or get there through one, right? The 3 links through the gigabit links would be much faster than the 1T1, right? 1.544 megabits per second and 3, gigabit per second links. And say no congestion, right? So if you want to get split hairs, a distance vector routing protocol would choose the T1, right? So that's not a very logical. If I'm just using hop count, that's why that's good for small networks. It's not good for networks that get bigger and more complex. Also prone to routing loops. A routing loop happens for a couple of different reasons, and we're going to get to, split horizon is the biggest one. Split horizon means if I learned from this other router over here that this network was down, I'm not going to advertise back out that this network is actually up. You know what I mean? Because then you're going to have a routing loop because nobody's really going to ever converge because there's disagreement in the routing protocol, disagreement between the nodes. Does that make sense? So split horizon essentially means that I won't argue with what I just learned from this guy over here, right? If he's going to have to tell me later, because I also don't have the thing with distance vector protocols is I don't have the entire topology. You'll see in the open shortest path first, OSPF and EIGRP. They all have knowledge of the entire architecture. They store that in their routing table, whereas RIP doesn't. It just stores its neighbors. What are my neighbors telling me? This neighbor told me it's up, but then this guy tells me over here, or this neighbor tells me it's down, but this neighbor tells me that this one is actually up, so I'm going to tell him back over here that it's up again. He's going to be like, no, you're down. I'm like, no, I'm up. You see what's happening? You got this loop? Okay. Hold down timers, avoid flapping. Flapping is when a network comes up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. When that happens too often, it's really not a big deal anymore. Networks are more stable than they used to be. But the routers would never converge. You'd never get convergence. And so just the chatter amongst your routers would give you bandwidth issues and latency issues. So hold down timers, do that. Distance vector routing protocol is RIP. So that's the only one I think you're going to have to memorize for the exam. Is the only distance vector protocol you're going to run into is RIP. You might hear RIP in RIP version 2. Not sure. Hop count is the metric. Blah blah blah. You don't get the full view, so you only hear what you hear from the neighbors. Slow convergence every 30 seconds. So regardless, even if I have no update, I'm still going to tell my neighbors, hey, I got no update. And then they're going to tell me later, I got no update either. So that gets chattery. 15 hop count limit. So if I have more than 15 VLANs in my network, then RIP's not going to work for me. RIP version 1 only does classical networks. So you remember the classical, ABC. You're not going to be routing Ds or Es, but ABC. RIP version 2 did then add report or CIDR, and it did add a few more functions, but it was still limited by this 15. It was still chattery. All those things still exist with RIP version 2. Other protocols, linked state routing protocols. OSPF is the king here. OSPF is, I love OSPF. I think it's the best routing protocol that ever lived. It is, man. It's just, I love how, everything starts with area 0 and then,
What about ISIS?
Yeah.
Set it and
God,
forget it.
no. Yeah, no. Well, ISIS can be used as an exterior gateway protocol. Yeah. So link state, there's a bunch of different things now that the routers can make decisions on. One, in a link state routing protocol like OSPF, the router understands the entire architecture. Right? It can make intelligent decisions, not all based on hearsay, but based on what it understands about the entire network. It's learned from the entire network. OSPF also only sends routing updates when there's an update to send. So it's not chattery. I can take into account all kinds of different things like bandwidth, congestion, all sorts of other things for routing decisions. It's super configurable. But the thing to remember about OSPF, it's a link state routing protocol different than the distance vector we talked about with RIP. Stands for open source path first. It is an open source. It's not proprietary like EIGRP, Enhanced Interior Gateway Routing Protocol, is a Cisco only, right? So you won't see that one on the exam, but you will see OSPF, you will see RIP, and you might see some BGP, but I don't think you'll see anything else in terms of routing protocol stuff.
Pretty high level.
Yeah. So areas, so there's like a boss in OSPF, like there's like bosses, they own the area sort of, you know what I mean? So they get so it's broken, even the routing structure itself is broken into segments, right? Areas, and area routers, area border routers talk to area border routers, right? So anyway, OSPF, fast convergence, it's the bomb. So this is,
Not so stubby.
what's that?
Not so stubby.
No, not so stubby, there you go. All right, so yeah, this is just what I talked about before in terms of if you look at a network like this, and let's say the data center wants to talk to, I don't know, we have to start from Office C. Say Office C because it's got that T1. Office C wants to talk to Office B. There's a T1, or I could go through two T3s. If you do the math without congestion, going through the center would be a faster route, but a RIP route would send you over the T1. That's essentially what this would show. BGP, Border Gateway Routing Protocol, or Border Gateway Protocol. This actually routes between autonomous systems, not specific IP addresses. So you'd have to register an autonomous system with IANA if you wanted to use BGP and play the game on the internet. It is the routing protocol of the internet. It's been the routing protocol on the internet since the beginning. Did you see what was the Nigeria?
Mm-hmm.
Took down, yeah, inadvertently was sending wrong updates in BGP and screwing up the table, so then it took off like Google and it was offline from certain.
3-4 months ago, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, if you don't know what you're doing with BGP, I guess you can really cause some havoc.
But you know, that was on the ISP too, because they should
Oh, for
block
sure.
those updates.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where I think they pointed the finger back, was to the Nigerian ISP for not blocking that. Yeah, most people don't use BGP. Most people rely on the ISP to run BGP, but you can go register an autonomous system, accept full BGP routing update on your own. The thing about BGP is it works sort of like a distance vector routing protocol, but it's actually what's called a path vector routing protocol. But that's all you need to know for BGP. Firewalls, who doesn't like a firewall? Everybody likes a firewall, don't you? No, I'm the only guy. All right. I like firewalls. I used to, somebody took a video of me. This was back in 2002, 3. It's an old ASA 55. I don't remember what it was.
10,
No.
5, 20.
Those are your options.
No, it wasn't even 55. It was a PIX 520, sorry. PIX 520.
That is,
Yep, PIX 520, where you had the ISA cards in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. For you know, firewall. And so, but I was reviewing logs, right? And so I was scrolling, reviewing the logs, and fell asleep. But I was sleeping and I was still scrolling logs. Scrolling. Yeah, I love those 520s. Those things are rock solid. All right, anyway, filtering traffic between networks. So, you know, firewall would do packet filtering. So where are packets? Remember where packets live? No,
It's-
therefore.
it's on the slide.
Well, there you go. Packet filtering. Well, yeah, but packets
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
layer 3.
No, but.
Right. Yeah, but if that
Gave them a
packet
50-50 shot.
there you go. And proxy firewalls. So proxy firewalls, proxy, right? They act on behalf of. That's the meaning of proxy is. That's how those firewalls work. Terminate the connection, reestablish a connection. I'll work on behalf of both sides and proxy all the traffic. That's how proxy firewalls work. Firewalls, multi-homed, multiple NICs, whatever, all that good stuff. We're going to go through some different firewall architectures. Hey, fire.
It's the firewall.
I like it. We should test that. Did you hear what I'm going to get? I'm going to get some go-karts in the back. Not the go-karts that get me in trouble. The go-karts, those Razor mini carts, they like spin.
Yeah.
I already,
Is the waiver sign for the last one still good for this one?
I don't know. I'm going to get 4 of them.
Nice.
I'm going to race them back there. See if I should get that before at the end of the class. You need barbecue and race those little go-karts. Have you seen those things? I'll show you after the class. I'm totally pumped about it. Did you know I got firewall? I got firewall. I got what those called? Go-karts. I bought Kevin. He's like my work wife.
He's the CFO.
He's a CFO and he's very like cut and dry, legal stuff, whatever. So he went on vacation, and when he went on vacation, I went and bought 2 go-karts.
Not just go like legit 2-seater with like
Those things were like fast. man.
Honda engines. They would go 25, 30 miles an hour.
At
Like
least.
they were at 20, I think.
Yeah. It was so awesome.
They were so
So we
so
had them
good.
parked in back, and I would sit in my office here, and you'd see people who work here driving by, and just this big ass smile on their face. So awesome, man.
Totally came by on the weekend. Like took
Yeah.
the kids around.
Oh yeah.
I hear past tense, they're done.
Well, Kevin found out. So Kevin came back from vacation, and I went on vacation, and I got some nasty texts about what the hell, legal this, legal that. I'm like, whatever, you know. And then he said waiver. Everybody's got to sign a waiver. So that was like a 5-6 page waiver.
It was really long.
Oh my God.
Totally read every word.
And then the fact that we don't own this building, we lease it, that's what killed it. So the next building we're just going to own.
Private track.
Absolutely. You bet.
Smell.
There's like, yeah, there's a picture of them. See, can you see it?
Legit.
See them?
Where are they now?
Decided to sell them
Yeah.
because Kevin made me get rid of them.
So Kevin has them at his house?
No. I don't think Kevin got in it, did he? I don't know. Anyway.
We had a lot of fun though.
That was.
All right, so back to firewalls. Packet filtering firewalls don't maintain state. It's nothing more than like an old router with an access control list on it. It just, everything that comes in on this interface is going to check source port or source address, source port, destination address, destination port. It's just going to check those sockets and make those routing decisions. Anything that goes back through the other way can be, remember we have the 3-way handshake, SYN, SYN-ACK, and ACK back. So if I send a packet with a SYN-ACK back, the packet firewall would assume that there was a SYN out, right? So that's how you could easily get through a lot of these firewalls because it wouldn't maintain state. It wouldn't know, oh, this isn't a response to a SYN packet that went out. You know what I'm saying? So you have the firewall I would send a SYNAC to get in, and it would forward because it would assume that there was a SYN that came, this was a response, but it wasn't. So that's why they're weak. They're fast, super fast, better than nothing, I suppose, but easy to pass. That's what a packet filter, the simplest firewall, and that's it's essentially an explanation of the same thing. Yep. That's how you bypass some of those. So then somebody created a stateful packet inspection firewall. The stateful packet inspection firewall maintains state. It has a state table. One of the things you can do with some still, even today, some stateful packet inspection firewalls, you can fill their state table. It's like almost like a buffer overflow, or take it offline. I've taken offline some Palo Altos on accident, just doing vulnerability scans. It's like, they call, oh my God, really? Okay, we'll turn it off, and then it comes back online. So you can do that with packet, because a state is nothing but more than a place in memory where I'm going to have to maintain all these connections, right? Those same 4 things: source, port, or source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port. It's going to maintain all that state traffic. And in a real busy firewall, you're going to have a lot of memory to keep up with that, potentially. Another thing that you can do on some firewalls is it's called you can do like a SYN flood. That still sometimes, will work. A SYN flood would mean I just send a boatload of SYN packets, and the receiver will send a SYNAC back, and then they'll keep that open for a period of time and wait for that last ACK packet, right? So I send a SYN, you send a SYNAC, and I never send you the last ACK. So you maintain that open, and I keep flooding that, right? Those SYN packets, that's a SYN flood. You can also do that. I don't think, some firewalls probably, you can still probably do that too. So, but you can configure that. Usually it's a configuration error. You just configure those timeouts to be a lot lower. Proxy firewalls, so there's that's what a proxy is, just gets in the way and stops everything. That'd be a pretty high, usually that's gotta be a pretty high performance system, for the proxy itself. It terminates the connections. There's no direct communication over a proxy. 2 types of proxies. You've got the application layer proxy. An application layer is all 7 layers, right? It proxies everything. The good thing about this is there's a good thing and a bad thing about this. The good thing is I can see all application data. The bad thing is I can see all application data, because if there's person identifiable information going through, if there's credit card information, if there's whatever, the proxy now becomes a potential problem, right? So an application layer proxy is very secure, but can be a problem too that you just need to account for. The other circuit level proxy, these are called SOCs typically, or used interchangeably, but they are different. Circuit level proxies operate at layer 5, so they don't see into the data stream itself. This is a better potential option, for an environment maybe with a cardholder data environment or PHI or something else, that I don't want to see. The thing is if you bring in a proxy, you may have no intent of, because even like encrypted traffic, a proxy will either just forward or will never see into the stream. So you may have an intent to see into the stream. So then you have to load encryption keys or load public-private keys on the proxy itself so that it can decrypt that traffic and then re-encrypt it on the other end. So this can get a little complicated when you're using proxies. But
I got a new joke.
Oh, what?
Why did the TCP packet go to Vegas?
Why?
It's Sin City.
That's we gotta see
Nate
these.
online. That was a good one. I hadn't heard that
We
before.
gotta save these. I like that.
Yeah.
Who did they tell the name? Can they share the name?
Nate Valberg.
There you go.
Good job, Nate.
Thank you, Nate. All right, so proxies. Any questions on proxies? No? What? You're looking at me like,
Hours and hours of discussion.
on proxies?
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, and DLP works.
I was gonna say,
The same crap. So dual homed host. This is the so dual homed host. There's no actual direct communication in a dual homed host. This firewall architecture, you log into the dual homed host, and then from the dual homed host, you go into something else, right? So there's no trick. It's almost like a bastion host, but it's not truly the bastion host in the way that the architectures are really defined. But this is one firewall design, a dual homed host, two network interfaces, one connected to the trusted, one connected to the untrusted. The host itself, so that dual homed host will not route. You don't want it to route in this architecture. Instead, what you do is you log in and then pivot, essentially, into the internal
jump
network.
bots.
Yeah, yep, exactly. Common before the 1990s. I wonder how many people, no, we were all born after 1990. But now we're having a new crop of people that,
God, it's
90s,
so depressing.
90s. Was that like, did you guys have cars then? Yeah. So screen host architecture, this is the true bastion host architecture. So the only thing that would be allowed through the screening router in that architecture is traffic to the bastion host. From the bastion host, you could access other things. So it's basically the same architecture. We've just broken out the bastion host function in another piece and made it routable. Yeah, that's that architecture. That's called a screened host architecture. DMZs came about, and we started using a screened subnet sort of architecture, but now I can have, now you do it all within one system. So it's like a three-legged stool. What? Quote? What? Joke?
It's been a long day, but yes, they're now
Another
going.
joke?
Did you hear the joke about UDP? Tell you, but you might not get it. That's okay. I made a joke about NTP once. The timing was perfect.
Who is this? Is it the same guy?
That was Ryan that had the NTP joke. Our Ryan.
Our Ryan?
Yeah.
Jeez, we gotta give him a bonus.
It's,
All right.
it's been a really long day that those are that funny to me.
Oh yeah, you guys should come in. Do you guys come around here? Like drive around here or whatever. You guys should come and visit on like a Friday afternoon sometime. Usually we're playing more, but it gets weird because we're all kind of mentally busted by Friday. But you're welcome to come stop by and say hi to the team, whoever's here.
Yeah.
All right, so bastion host, whatever. So DMZ network. So you guys have all seen DMZ. A DMZ comes from the demilitarized zone thing. It's like a sacrificial network almost. But nobody can access anything directly internal. So you have three central networks, untrusted or external, untrusted and trusted. The untrusted would be the DMZ, depending on whatever names you want to give it. So all external access from the internet can only terminate in the DMZ, can't terminate internally. That way, supposedly, if you compromise the DMZ host, you've kept the attacker in the DMZ. They're not in your internal network where you've got your crown jewels, you've got, your databases and things like that. The problem is with a lot of people, the way they set up their DMZs, set up these hosts that are in the DMZ to have communication, sometimes really sensitive communication with something internal. So if that DMZ system was compromised, it's a simple pivot into the internal network, right? That's pretty common. So if you are using a DMZ, look at the firewall rules between both, right? We certainly, like 1433, that's SQL. Sometimes it's just architected that way. I mean, if you can put something else there, or maybe put some DLP or some kind of proxy maybe in between those two systems, that might help a little bit. But anyway, DMZ, that's what it is. Hosts on the DMZ should be hardened. They should be audited regularly. They should be tested regularly, right? Ideally, you've got enough control over systems in the DMZ that any change that's made into the DMZ system has to go through formal change control. So you have a hardened system to begin with, so you have a baseline configuration on that system. And then when you go to audit it, maybe once a quarter, once every 6 months, once a year, you look at the configuration of what it is today. It's deviated from the baseline there must be a change control. If there's not a change control, you've got an incident. Either way, you've got an incident. It's either an attacker or somebody internally didn't follow a process, right? Both are incidents. That's how I treat DMZs because they are exposed. It's a really big deal to watch DMZ systems. Most people don't, sadly. That's one DMZ architecture. That's called the screen subnet architecture. We actually have two separate physical firewalls. One is exposed to the internet. Between the two firewalls is where the DMZ is, and then you've got the internal firewall, that controls access to the internal network. This is actually a little bit more secure than just the standard DMZ network with 3 interfaces on a single firewall. Yeah. And sometimes DoD gets a little crazy on these. We had to set up a DoD network once, and they wanted like a 6-tier architecture. Oh. And every one of those, you had to have redundancy, so you had 6 basic tiers. And the DoD works like every single firewall has to be a different make. We had Sidewinders, we had Palo Altos, we had Cisco, we had
Juniper.
I mean, it was like, which when you think about it, right? So if we know complexity is the enemy of security, right? We've got these 6 firewalls.
One person's totally an
expert. That's a configuration nightmare, right? I mean, how do I audit who's, there's all kinds of mistakes in there. So that's when you take it a little bit too far. 2 maybe, but simplicity is good. This is a single firewall DMZ. This is the common one. This is what, most people today, a single firewall with multiple interfaces. And there may be, in some cases, 5, 6 DMZ networks for different functions. Any questions on any of that stuff? Firewall design, all that stuff, good stuff. For the test, DMZ alone, if it doesn't specify otherwise, will mean a dual firewall DMZ for the test. Okay, that's the original DMZ architecture. Modem, modulator, demodulator, takes analog signals, makes them digital, and goes back the other way. Computers don't speak analog. Computers are all 1, 0. So if I want to take an analog signal and make a computer be able to understand it and communicate back, it's going to have to be converted. And that's what modems do. Have you guys all seen modems before? That's nowadays you can ask. Everybody seen modems? Like, modem? Weird.
I remember managing modem banks.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Did you get the phone crate one yet?
That was the one I had in junior high school. We used to play Oregon Trail on the dial-up. Stuck it in there. What?
You've got dysentery.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I spent a lot of hours playing Oregon Trail. That was a lot of fun. Then you went from that to like, bulletin boards. You dialed into all those. That's where I got my first copy of Windows 95. Yeah, I did. So anyway, I did modem, whatever, asynchronous devices. So there's no clocking. When you see asynchronous, it means there's no clocking. They're not synchronized in their communication. That's how modems work. They don't have a clock signal. So anything that needs to be sent over a modem would require something higher level, a protocol working over the modem in order to have that clocking. Because you still have to have synchronization, right? Every time, just in a normal conversation, there has to be some synchronization, otherwise it's just chaos. So the modem itself doesn't do clock signaling, but there are protocols that run through the modem that do. There it is.
Yes.
I watched a YouTube video. My daughter showed me, actually. She's 14. Never seen a modem. And she's never seen that.
Yeah, what's that black thing?
Right. But there was a YouTube video, and I think it kind of went viral, where 2 guys, teen guys, were
trying to figure out how to dial.
Yes.
Use it,
Did you see that video? Yeah, and I think they were truly baffled. I don't think they were playing for the camera. They didn't know how to use this.
It's just so depressing.
Yeah. But anyway, that's an old school.
You got a 0 in your number? Never mind.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
All right.
Or a 9, I guess, right?
Yep. So these things would, so now we're breaking this down a little bit more, could or couldn't, it doesn't matter. This is more just, so what I'm looking for. Telco architecture stuff. So DTE, DCE, those are two terms you'll need to remember. The DTE is the data terminal equipment. That's premise. That's something that you own. That's something the client owns. It could be a computer system, could be a desktop, whatever. That's the DTE. The DCE is a data communications equipment. That's usually something that the ISP would own, but you could also own it, I suppose. So you understand, data terminal is not data termination equipment. It's data terminal equipment and data circuit terminating equipment. Knowing what those things are. Now, DCs and DTs are synchronous. There's our clocking. There's our signal, to keep things synchronized. There's also this concept of a CSU, DSU. Sometimes older, as we got closer to eliminating all of this, it was just TSUs, terminal service units. But the DC device, a modem, or a CSU, DSU channel service unit, those things were like expensive too, man. Like $1,000 for a CSU, DSU that would do nothing but provide clocking and synchronicity on the circuit. But that's all you need to know. You'll just have to memorize. You won't see this anymore. You won't see this anywhere. Yeah, common use of the terms. Oh, DMARC. You'll need to know DMARC. So DMARC is where essentially where the DTE is. That would be the DMARC, the destination point. Yeah, that's all you need to know for that. Authentication protocols and frameworks. Authentication, we still go back to this IAAA, right? That was the first class. So authentication or a network, there's lots of different ways to do that. The important thing, in authentication over the network is we don't want a man in the middle. If that flow isn't protected, they can either compromise there's two things that are really significant. Encryption for the authentication, because if somebody sniffs the traffic, they can authenticate. The other one is replay attacks. So even if it's encrypted, if I can take enough of that data and replay it, I can still authenticate, right? I don't need what was in the encrypted data stream. I just need to replay that thing. So those are the two kind of biggest things for authentication protocol. On networks. PAP. PAP's, I think you can still actually use PAP, believe it or not. Password authentication protocol. There's no encryption. It's weak. You don't want PAP anywhere. Insecure should not be used. Then CHAP. CHAP, Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol, actually doesn't even send the password over the link. It's a challenge and then a response challenge. Sometimes you can even put the response to that challenge hashed with the password. And then, you know what I mean? So the password stored at both places. You would send me a challenge. I would hash that challenge or with a response and or my password. And then you would decrypt it on the authentication server. Password was never sent in clear text or even sent at all. The only thing that was sent was the hash. And that would be used for authentication because both know how to create that same hash. Does that make sense? So more secure authentication protocol, no exposure of the clear text password. Oh, but one thing oftentimes with CHAP, though, I think the way it's built originally is the passwords are stored in clear text on the CHAP server. So that's a problem.
Yeah,
You attack the CHAP server, and there you go.
Nobody ever implements poorly.
No, that's the same thing with Kerberos too, by the way, which we'll get to in a couple classes probably. More secure authentication protocol does not expose the password, not susceptible to replay attacks because the challenges would be different. Relies on a shared secret, the password, so both know the password and they're going to use the password in the authentication, but they're not going to send the password in the authentication. Password securely created, blah, 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 stored on the CHAP server, usually stored in plain text, which is bad. Yeah. Make sense? CHAP? There's flavors of CHAP too. There's MS CHAP, Microsoft's version of CHAP and others. So this is how it works. First creates the initial unauthenticated connection using link control protocol. The server then does the handshake. We'll send a challenge, otherwise called a nonce. It's just, here's a challenge. The receiver will receive that nonce and hash it with usually the password, hash it with the password, and then send that back. Being that the original chat server knows what the password is anyway, it'll be able to calculate that same thing, and that's what it's expecting back as a response. If it gets the same thing back as a response, it's authenticated. That's how chat works. 2.x and EAP. This is what we call like EAP, PEEP, LEAP, all kinds of different EAPs. EAP is extensible authentication protocol. So anytime you hear EAP on a network, it's not a bird. Twitter should use EAP. That'd be cool. It's extensible authentication protocol. 802.1x is the IEEE standard to allow that, right, as well as other things. Support network access control because this is working at layer 2 or above. So EAP, the extensible authentication protocol, specification layer 2, node resides. Yeah, we talked about that. Roaming infected laptop. So you'll see different versions of EAP. EAP by itself is just that, but here is LEAP. So LEAP was Cisco. What's Cisco? Was Cisco proprietary protocol. And I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just that's how I was talking. Because now everybody's so dang politically correct. You don't know who you're offending anymore. So if I offended somebody online, I'm sorry. Cisco proprietary release protocol released 802.1x finalized, blah, blah, blah. Significant security flaws, so you won't see. EAP TLS is transport layer security. There's two-way authentication with TLS, which is good, but it's also a lot of overhead, right? So it'll be slower. It's probably the most, well, one of the most secure, if not the most secure methods of authentication, network authentication, but does require you to have a PKI, a public key infrastructure, does require to issue private keys to every client that's going to authenticate right everywhere. So it gets to be kind of an administrative headache over time. So that's its biggest downfall. It's not the security of it that's its flaw, it's how hard it is to do. So we got EAP TTLS, Tunnel Transport Layer Protocol. We just eliminate the client side. So this, we did reduce security here because now the client isn't authenticated. Now the client isn't authenticating, the client itself isn't authenticating. There's an authentication still from the authentication server, and it's still fairly secure, but it's not used very often. Again, it's got more overhead than just, using shared secrets and things like that. And there's PEEP, protected PEEP. Oh, and I should mention too, TTLS was Funk Software and Certicom. Funk Software was a big creator, or not creator, but Radius. Remember the Funk Radius server? Mm-hmm. No? Use that Funk Radius server. It'd just be cool whenever you get to say funk, because people don't know if you're saying funk or any other word. PEEP, protected. So this one was much more widely implemented, because every time you get Cisco and Microsoft involved, it's gonna be a thing. So that PEEP has we'd drop the client side certificate. And it was similar. That's all you need to know for the exam. You don't need to look at actual packets or anything and that stuff. VPNs. Everybody knows what VPNs are. Probably the most common VPNs. IPsec VPNs are still the most common. But it's two things that happen in a VPN. Typically, there's a tunnel, which is a virtual tunnel, and then there's the encryption itself. SLIP isn't used anymore, serial line internet protocol. PPP is still the basis for a lot of different protocols today. Layer 2 protocols, first introduced in 1988. That's when I graduated high school. 88. getting old. Routing packets, modem links, yeah. No, the reason why SLIP was never, it was great for a while until PPP came because it just had no protection. It was kind of a no frills protocol.
PPP is used a lot now.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah, it's still very popular.
Then it kind of slipped off the field.
There you go. Yep, slipped. Yeah, but the biggest thing I think for the exam is just knowing that there's no protection in SLIP at all. Whereas PPP is more extensible and there is protection with PPP. So PPP point-to-point protocol, also layer 2, replace SLIP based on hdlC. So if you remember hdlC, we have the 3 modes for hdlC. NRM, ARM, and NBC, NBM, sorry. Confidential integrity authenticator are all in PPP. Synchronous links, all those things, memorize this and you're fine for PPP. Nowadays, it's sort of built into so many things. I don't know how many people actually configure PPP anymore. VPN, point-to-point tunneling protocol, this used to come, this was kind of your only option with Microsoft for a while. It was built into NT4, it was built into, no, it wasn't built into Windows 98. Do you remember Windows 98? Yeah. This is a long time for, oh yeah, it's only what, 20 years ago?
Only.
Yeah. But PPTP is, it's still around, but it's just not used very often anymore. It's tunnels PPP in IP, uses GRE. GRE is protocol 53. So GRE is a protocol actually in the network layer. So it's not a protocol. It's not a TCP port, right? It's an actual protocol number, is what GRE is. But it passes, and that's where the encapsulation comes. That's where it tunnels. It's through GRE. So it passes PPP via IP and then uses TCP. That's how it would communicate 1723. So if you see 1723, that's still very commonly used with IPsec as well. Layer 2 tunneling protocol was trying to make it better. The thing with layer 2 is just a tunneling protocol. There's no encryption built into tunneling protocol. You have to use something else to provide the encryption with layer 2 tunneling protocol. This is, I think what really happened is I think that Cisco wanted to create their own. I don't think they liked that Microsoft was using TP because Cisco seemed like they kind of led the charge with L2 TP, but then it sort of died. No confidentiality, yeah, because there's no encryption with L2 TP. IP version 4, no built-in confidentiality. We know that, right? There's no security at all built into IP version 4. IPsec was used, and it's actually built into in a kind of a non-separable part of IP version 6. It is ingrained into IP version 6. For IP version 4, it's a tack-on. It's an add-on. Yeah, so IPsec ported to IP version 4, safe protocol, blah, blah, blah. We talked about ESP and authentication header already. You talked about those, right?
Yep.
Encapsulating security payload and authentication header. One just authenticates the packet. The other one actually encapsulates, creates the tunnel. Yep. There's other protocol numbers. So you see protocol numbers, IP protocol numbers, don't confuse those with port numbers. Those are actual IP protocol numbers at the network layer, not at the transport layer. But there's ESP's protocol number 50 and AH is 51. That's what it looks like. You can see the encapsulation taking place, and you can see where the third one down, you can see that the that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, encapsulation. The whole thing is actually encapsulation, but the encapsulation of the actual wall happens at that third one down. And it doesn't really matter what you tack on at the bottom. Bottom's just destination stuff to get you there. All the work is really done at that network layer. But that's a pretty good, I like that diagram. Did you find that?
Yeah, I found it in the slides from last year.
Did you? No, because I like that diagram. It really does a good job of kind of explaining how it works.
Yeah.
Down one side, up the other. You can see where IPsec does its thing. Right, secure others, 3 architectures. Okay, so these are ways that I can use IPsec. These aren't the specific protocols like we talked about before with AH and ESP, these are actual ways I could set it up. And they're all pretty self-explanatory. I can do host to gateway. That's our traditional way of doing VPN. Remote access VPNs are all host to gateway. I've also got gate to gate, gateway to gateway. We know all that point-to-point VPNs, right, which is between two gateways. Normally they speak IPsec natively, or I mean, it's just part of the configuration. Then you've got host to host. That's truly where two hosts don't have a gateway, and they truly speak IPsec natively, right? It's in their protocol stack. It might have been something that you installed, but it's a native speaking IPsec host. That's the difference. So you've got host to gateway, pretty simple. Gateway to gateway, that's the point-to-point stuff, and then host to host. Makes sense? Those are three architectures for IPsec. They each have their own applications. SSL and TLS, well, it's funny we even talk about SSL anymore, because if you're using SSL, you're naughty. Don't use SSL anymore. So SSL is, it's been replaced with TLS, and it's not. What is TLS 1.3 isn't in draft anymore, is it? Is TLS 1.3 is out?
No.
Just got released today.
Yeah.
December.
Yeah. So, but for the test, this is all fine. This is what it is for the test. But practically, TLS 1.3 is the way to go until we find something else in that. So, and how SSL and TLS also work. HTTPS as the protocol. SSL and TLS are not actual protocols. They're functions, mathematical things that make HTTPS work. It's what HTTPS would use to communicate encryption. TLS, yeah, that's all you need to know. Oh, SSL VPNs are another form of VPN. So you have the client VPNs, because with an IPsec VPN, you'll know about the client, right? Because your client doesn't know how to speak IPsec, right? SSL VPNs use a browser. They connect through HTTPS using TLS, hopefully, or older ones maybe SSL. And then what you'd be displayed is almost like a terminal, usually after you log in, or options, whatever, limited menu. But there's lots of different ways now to access networks remotely. There's Citrix. It's got a ton of different ways. I mean, there's so many different ways. For the test, this is what you need to know. What you don't want, and if I see it, it just really mad, is an RDP server sitting on the internet with the username and password. RDP server on the internet's enough. An RDP server on the internet with just username and password is enough to make you just really mad. So don't do that. So if you have that at anywhere, don't.
If you have that, assume you're breached.
Basically, yeah. I mean, they're so easy. Yeah. So anyway, that's not a good remote access solution. These are, better. So this is just a negotiation of an encrypted connection. Excuse me. It's good to know, but you won't need to know the detail of this on the exam. But it is good to know if you like to know how these things function. Because essentially, when the client connects to the server, the client's requesting a secure connection, or sometimes the server will force it, but there's no secure connection. So there needs to be a negotiation of all the encryption parameters before we can start. And there'll have to be an exchange of public and private keys. That's what all this is going through. You don't need to know it for the exam. It's just good to know. ISDN,
That's old school.
Yeah, right. Now you're telco, right?
Used to be, yeah.
Used to be. ISDN still being used?
A little bit,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
for voice.
Okay. Yeah. So ISDN still around, still going somewhat strong. ISDN was actually originally developed by Nortel. It was Northern even before it was Nortel, Northern Telecom. It was right over
There.
or over there. Where wasn't it down in the office park over here, the Bren Road and all that?
Off 168, Brent.
Yeah, isn't that where
That was their office here.
that's where ISDN was
I mean,
originally?
Northern Telco is based out of Toronto, but.
Yeah, but I think it was developed here in
Oh,
Minnetonka. I don't know. Anyway,
You don't need that.
Nortel. It was
Nortel.
definitely Northern Telecom. My father worked for Northern Telecom at the time, and I remember your father did too. And I remember him bragging to my mother because my father was in was in MIS from like the late 50s, right? So it was like they made their own circuits, and I mean it was crazy. And he got out of the Marine Corps in 78, 70, 76, 78, whatever. And then he went to Northern Telecom. And I remember him bragging to my mother about, yeah, we just, the guys, his guys, I don't think he did it because he wasn't an engineer like that. You can send voice, you can send data on the same phone line. My mom was like, no, really? Because my mom worked at IBM. It was like, and I just remember hearing that conversation, and it was like, whatever. That's why this kind of hits home with me. Isn't that weird? Sort of. My life is weird. BRI and PRI, that's what you need to know for ISDN. BRI is primary rate interface is essentially the same bandwidth as a T1, right? The BRI is an individual signal within that T1. 64K digital signals, but then you have to have a synchronizing thing, something to keep the synchronicity, right? Keep things, and that's a side channel, 16K channel. All over copper, all over plain telephone line, POTS copper, right? That's how ISDN worked. DSL, newer, still, we're using DSL, I think at home. I don't know what the hell I have at home anymore. But DSL, digital subscriber line, it's also using it was designed to use plain old telephone lines as well to carry digital signals. So there has to be a digital, almost like a modem, right? It's almost like the same kind of modem that has to happen somewhere, right? And it would happen with what's called the central office. The central office wasn't like a real office where like people were working. It was sort of a DMARC.
Owned by the telcos who hated DSL providers.
Yeah.
I worked for one.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how DSL works. And it was crazy when the stuff first started coming out because we were all using dial-up then.
Yeah.
I was still, when DSL came out, I was still using AOL, dial-in. It's crazy.
The telcos loved it because no matter what the condition of the copper was, whether it had extra taps off or anything, they could by just not using that portion that was reflected.
Yeah.
So you have to go out and condition everything.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, then they would also push it back on the DSL company and say, oh, it's your stuff, even though we could show the break was in the middle.
Remember the filter on your actual phone?
Some places you still do have to have a filter.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, some places like when you get out a little bit more rural, you still have to have the filters. I think.
Maybe you still do. I don't have a home phone anymore.
Oh yeah, I don't have a home phone anymore, but I do have DSL, so I do have a home phone because you get a phone with it. I don't use it.
Right.
Yeah, but it's because my only other option where I live is who's that cable? Media,
Yeah.
and I hate Media.
That's right. MediaCraft?
Oh, they've done me so wrong.
Right.
So I will
What
never
do you
go
do?
back to Mediacom.
They're worth it.
Well, yeah, that's right. You have no option. So it's either
Yeah.
Mediacom or CenturyLink. Or
I could get
satellite.
Mediacom for,
The satellite has so much latency, you
Oh,
can't
yeah,
do
you can't
anything.
do
I mean,
anything.
you can have a ton of bandwidth, but the latency sucks. So yeah, I used to use HughesNet way back when, and which was good for like just normal computing stuff, but you couldn't do any streaming, you couldn't do any real time, you couldn't do any VoIP stuff, no gaming, any of that stuff, too much latency. Anyway, DSL, yeah, reminiscing, it's nice. So symmetric, so look at the words, symmetric digital subscriber line, that would be the same up and down. It's symmetric. Asymmetric would be faster down, slower up. It's always going to be slower up than down. Very high data rate, digital subscriber line, it'd just be a lot faster, but still asymmetric. Faster down, slower up.
Distance from the CO makes a huge.
Yeah.
Oh,
difference
for
in
sure.
speed.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. DSL, 2 pairs of copper, so this would be a little bit different. So rather than just everything running under 1 pair, I'd have 2 pair. And would that be 1 up, 1 down? Would it be 1 pair up, 1 pair down? Yeah. There's some speeds for you, and then distance from that central office. Theoretical distances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go about 2/3 of that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like 5,000 feet, that's a mile. And I don't think you'd get
You get it.
DSL a
No.
mile. I don't know, maybe. Right, cable modems. Now, the thing with cable modems, other cable company sucks is, there's probably some MediaCom people on here too, and like, hey,
Shared.
yeah,
Shared.
oh yeah, sure,
So when
exactly.
the kids get home after school and start gaming and downloading and all that stuff, you're.
Yeah, during the day, you got, assuming people are at school or something, you've got, there's certain times when you've got awesome bandwidth, and there's certain times you get crap bandwidth, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because it is a shared, it all comes off the same, I don't even know what they call that
Same
thing,
pipe.
like bridge, pipe, whatever the hell that thing is. So dedicated bandwidth, you can get cable with dedicated, I think, because there are some business services where they can provision you so that you do get more dedicated, but it's not for the normal home user, and I don't trust it. So that's cable modems, remote access, callback and caller ID. So this would be more for dial-in stuff. So callback, yeah, I would dial, and you would dial me back at the predefined phone number, whatever's been configured in the modem, and that would be a way to authenticate. Because you dial in, you type in your username and password or whatever it is you're using for authentication, and look you up, say you must be at this number, and it would dial you back at that number. So you'd have some semblance of a 2-factor authentication, but easily spoofed. And then caller ID, which is super easily spoofed, right? Caller IDs are just, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of caller ID spoofing when we do social engineering attacks.
Yep.
There's services you can
Free
buy on the
services
internet.
and stuff.
Free services, right. So, but that would be another way that you could, before it was so easy, I think, to do, you could, add that to your dial-in authentication, that you must be dialing from this number. Stops the casual people, I suppose. Instant messaging is another way for remote access. Instant can also be a pain in the butt, because I can also, just like everything, if it was only used for what it was originally designed to use, like email was only meant to send messages. It wasn't meant to be a file server. But we made it a file server, so now it's got this big problem. Same thing with instant messaging. At the core, instant messaging isn't all that bad, but now I can transfer files, I can transfer videos, I can do everything with instant messaging. So it becomes a bigger issue. You can see there's some old ones there, AOL Instant Messenger, ICQ. ICQ is still being used, and other things about instant messaging. But sometimes difficult to control, because they're also a lot of them are highly configurable, so I can configure different ports. If I'm not doing egress filtering, I'll never see the traffic. If I'm not watching what's allowed outbound, but those things too will jump sometimes. So instant messaging can just be a pain in the butt if you have troubled users. IRC, Internet Relay Chat, this is still also in operation today. IRC channels, there's lots of things happening in IRC, always has been. Global network of chat servers and chat clients. You can also use IRC for command and control. There's been a number of DDoS attacks that have been carried out through IRC. IRC servers typically port 6667, but I can change it. You can change it. It makes another difficult thing to control. You'll have to actually watch. You'll have to have some either data loss prevention or proxy, or really filter egress traffic somehow. The right way to do, if you really wanted to do this stuff right, you'd go whitelist everywhere. Who's going to do it, though? Not yet. Oh, it's such a pain. Well, I've never actually done it. I don't even know. I know theoretically that whitelist would be a pain, but who's actually going to jump in and do it? I guess if you started the network from scratch, that would be the time.
very like isolated, sensitive environment.
Right. Oh, yeah,
But
someone knows, but not in like a
not wide.
global or like corporate.
No.
RDP, remote desktop console access. Lots of different ways to do remote console. Those are some, the Unix one on the top there. Those would also, you don't want those ports open, so don't have those ports open ever to the internet. VNC, could secure it. RDP, just hate it. You know, but those are things that you could do. And those are the port numbers. The only ones that you'll need to know, you won't need to know well, memorize them all. I don't know
Yeah.
for sure. You'll definitely need to know RDP's ports. You probably need to know R login. And you
Yeah,
probably might need to know
Unix
VNC too.
513, 514.
Those are popular ones to look for badness. And boom, 1 minute, 30 seconds late.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
One more jokes. Got two more.
Okay, hold on.
Bring them on.
All
Let's
right.
do this real quick.
Oh, yeah.
We're done with chapter 5. So that's the technical list stuff. So for people that aren't technical, that's the hardest part for you. It's gonna be a lot of memorization because you haven't had for people that are technical, we've done hands-on stuff. We've done labs.
Second nature.
We've made these things work. So it's really, easier for technical people, but don't worry about it. If you're not technical, or if you really want to do it, there's virtual labs you can go, get into that are either cheap or free. Cybrary might have some virtual labs.
Doesn't Microsoft have some
Microsoft
free stuff?
But let us know, rather than give up on the technical stuff, rather than give up, let us know. See if we can help get over that hump. We need more security people in the industry. Page 293 in the book, Monday 5-6 is where we start on chapter 6, Identity and Access Management, which is one of my favorite ones, but you get to teach it. So,
I mean,
my life
if you
basically
really,
sucks.
really want to do it.
No, it's okay. All right, jokes.
All right. Did you hear the UDP packet tried to get into the TCP club? He didn't know the handshake. But that's the great thing about UDP jokes. You don't care if people get them or not. There you go. So
Nice.
there you
I
go.
love that. That's good. Those are good jokes. Who are those? Is those all rhyme?
No, Kurt Kapsner with the UDP packet into the club, and then Nate again with the second one. So there you go.
All right, we're done with class. We actually made it on time, which is a miracle for me.
I have a quick question. Do you know any good VPNs?
Yeah, I replied on the finally on the
Slack channel.
Slack channel. NordVPN is good. I usually switch between NordVPN and XVPN, but there's
Proton has one.
Proton has one too. Yeah, but Nord is kind of the leader, I think, probably.
Cloudflare is launching a new one that's supposed to be pretty cool.
I just don't want
It's
I don't want anyone that's developed or routes through in any way China. Because you're seeing a lot more VPN apps popping up that were developed by Chinese, and I just don't trust anything right now network-wise from China, going to or coming from. Because they're actively doing crappy things. So yeah. But if you want help, are you on the Slack channel, Michelle? End it for all.
Yep.
Are you on this